Good morning. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And on this channel, we bring you at least 2 decks a day that keep you ahead of the meta. Today, we're going to do just that with our friend W's decks. The former Wobolos is the original creator of Doomwave, one of the very few creators, I believe we're 4 or 5 in the whole game, where if they release new decks, we make a video covering it because you know the deck is going to be quality. You know you're going to be able to win and compete with that deck. W hit Infinite and released the 2 decks he used to get there. He is the creator of the most recent version of Thanos Control that was meta, the one that used Psylocke, Professor X, and Spider-Man. He has cracked the deck again. Don't think that deck is dead. Lockdown is not gone. It's just using Professor X, not Spider-Man now. We'll talk about how that deck plays, what you do with it, and how it wins games of Marvel Snap. Before we get there, though, I'd like you to subscribe, like, ring that notification bell, comment, do all that good stuff to help support us. We bring you decks every weekday to help you get Infinite. We help you get there. Help us out, provide us some support. Subscribing is free, liking is free, ringing that bell is free. You do these little things, you help us. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Whether you decide to subscribe or not, I hope we can provide you enough value to make it worth your while. All right. Before we go further, W has YouTube. It's sort of a pain in the ass to find, but it is youtube.com/at W Marvel Snap. You can't just search W Marvel Snap because, it's just like, oh, you just mean Marvel Snap. I don't know what you're talking about, that W. But it's at W Marvel Snap. It's worth following him. His YouTube is brand new, and look, he's phenomenal and deserves support. He's one of the best deck builders in the game. Let's get to this Thanos build without further ado. So the main changes here are Angela is in the swing spot, and Vision is in the 5-cost spot for Spider-Man. We've talked about this deck 6 times on the channel at this point. So the main idea of the deck is you want to either Psylocke or Time Stone so that you can get Professor X out on turn 4. That has in no way changed. Professor X in that lane, you're doing that on a lane with a bunch of stones, works almost like an armor. It works to protect your board, to protect those stones so that you're not worried about a Killmonger or anything else, and that is one lane that you have then won. Jeff's main value here is an extra boost for that lane. As needed, Claw is also really good for that, so you really, really, really want to be playing in the middle, or my preference, the far right lane, if you've got that Professor X play lined up. Angela joins the deck as a way to get some extra power, dropping some stones on Angela. It's easy to make her a 6 to 8 power card by the end of the game, and a 6 to 8 power for 2 is really great. All you have to do is play on her. The extra power, by the way, is either Jeff on her and then moving it out, or Time Stone, Space Stone elsewhere and moving something out of her lane to shift power. You can actually get her even higher, by the way. I just realized Vision should work on her as well. The rest of the deck is relatively similar. Iron Lad is sort of your I missed my ramp, so I need to scam a 5 out. You'll notice this deck runs 5 different 5-drops. It was running Legion for a bit, but Vision is better for this current version. We'll get to why later. But Iron Lad fundamentally adds as a way to ramp out an extra 5 when you've missed your other ramp cards. Your downside for him, look, he could be bad for you, right? Like, you could hit a Thanos. You could hit a Cosmo in a place you don't really want Cosmo. But your downside is usually, if you play cards on Iron Lad, it gets 2 power, right? That's still pretty good. He's going to get large very quickly that way. You can hit a Jeff and move him around. You can hit a stone. Power Stone is a bad hit. Every other stone, though, draws you a card and gives you another effect. All of that is really useful with Iron Lad. And obviously, Professor X is the high roll. Actually, I guess so is Devil Dino, but there's a few high rolls. It's a really, really great card in this deck. You can play it with Jubilee, but you're going to run out of space with this deck. So, I really hope you have Iron Lad for this deck. You can also play this deck without Jeff, play a nice high tempo too, so that you can later on Professor X that lane. If you're desperate for either Armor or Daredevil, that's where you would play that card. Blue Marvel is a way to add strength to lanes late. It's also a lot of power because of the stones, and it takes a lot of your, I'm pretty good cards to great, like Angela becoming 8, 9, 10 with Blue Marvel, Iron Lad with that extra power. A lot of these things are the difference between winning and losing games. I've even had Shang-Chi a reasonable amount of the time with that extra power from Blue Marvel be a way to win the game. Devil Dino is just a huge body. You draw a lot of cards. Devil Dino goes in most Thanos decks. We talked about Claw, we talked about Professor X, and here's the other thing you can do with Vision. So sometimes you're going to be able to ramp, and you're not going to draw Professor X until turn 5. But one of the ways you can make sure your Professor X wins is in a lane it looks like you're losing and you don't have a way to take over, you can move Vision to that lane and play Professor X on top of him. That's 11 power. That's going to usually win on turn 5, that lane. That's an extremely powerful combination of cards. Now, you also have then you have to win another lane turn 2, right? Like you can't go Professor X on 4, Spider-Man on 5 like you could to just win. So you need another way to win the game. That's ultimately where Shang-Chi and Devil Dino come in, sometimes Blue Marvel. But like now you're just trying to play something big and take over the game. If you have priority, you can do worse than something like Cosmo and then like a couple of stones. If you know that they're playing ongoings, let's say you can tell where they're going to play Killmonger and or Surfer, right? Surfer's everywhere. You can drop Cosmo in that lane and just often shut them down, steal extra cubes that way. If you know that they're already big, if you know where they're gonna make a big Dakin and you can't stop it, Dakin is my example. It could be any big card, and you can't stop it. Well, Shang-Chi and Jeff are a phenomenal 2 cards to play. Or Shang-Chi and a couple stones are a phenomenal couple cards to play. And remember, because of Angela, you're not just playing like it. Let's say you play Shang, a Space Stone, and a Power Stone, right? That's 7 power, but like if you put a couple of those on Angela, it's 11 power, which is a perfectly respectable last turn, plus whatever power Shang is taken off the board. It's a really, really cool take on the deck that brings it back into prominence. Is this going to be meta like it was before? I'm not sure. It's too early to tell. The deck was just published, but W is brilliant, and if he says this deck is good, like he's basically always right about Marvel Snap. So you should take his decks and opinions quite seriously. And while everyone's going to focus on this deck, this is the thumbnail, this is the deck we're talking about, this is not the deck I'm excited about. The deck I'm excited about is the second deck that W used to hit Infinite. This is called My Job is Just Beach. Go see Barbie, y'all. Movie's really, really great. This is a really great deck. This is a Zabu deck in a similar way to that Darkhawk or Zabu decks, where if you see Zabu, the entire game goes differently. If you see Zabu, this deck feels overpowered, but there's like 1,000 different plays here, so let's talk about them. You can conceivably go something like Mr. Sinister into 3, into Absorb Mana on 4. That gives you a 4/10 in power. That's a really good power number. You can also end up Iron Ladding into Mr. Sinister for 8/4/12. Now, either of these plays are really great. What's really especially great about them is you can add 2 power to the clone, so that for 10 becomes 4/12, and that for 12 becomes 4/14. If you play Patriot, Patriot offers a bump to the Sinister clone. Of course, that's the backup plan. Brood is the way you'd really like to do this. With this deck, you're very often going to go Brood on 3 into Absorbing Man on 4. And then if you can go Sarah on 5, you can play all sorts of combo stuff later. Like a Surfer at that point is an incredibly powerful card because it's pumping that 15 to 19, and that Brood is going up to its normal 12 power. It's enough to win a lot of games of Snap, right? You can aim really high here, thanks largely to Wong and Debris. So let's say you want I don't know, how do I phrase this? Pseudo Ultron, you just want to put power. You've got Patriot out, and then you go Wong, right? Like you can conceivably go Debris on Wong, right? Or play, I don't know, Sinister into Debris on Wong, and then drop an Absorb Man on that. You basically fill every spot. You fill a lot of their board. They get 2 useless rocks on their board. You get 2 power rocks on yours. It's a nice way to win. If you do that twice, you basically fill their whole board. If you play, that's a really, really great play, by the way. If they have magic, you filled their board, and like there's nothing they can do. They can just sit there and look at them for the last turn of the game with nowhere to play, as you've locked up the whole game. Surfer on Wong is obviously extremely strong, as are Surfer into Absorbing Man. Both are excellent plays. Both are enabled by Sarah or Zabu. Those can win games all by themselves. Ironheart here works as like a mini Surfer. If you miss Surfer, it's obviously less powerful. But if you've got Wong and Absorbing Man, or Wong, just Wong, Iron Lad putting power all over the board is still going to be really good. And the last card, the card I think is really brilliant here, is the card that like took me from like I like this deck to over the moon about it is Wolfsbane. It's very easy to fill locations with this deck, and Wolfsbane's going to be a 3/7 that you can make a 3/9 just with Surfer, right? That's excellent in and of itself. That's top line stats. That's Maximus. That's great. But when you can do that on a Wong, or you can do that and then play Absorbing Man, right? So you're going to add 6 powered Absorbing Man. Now it's a 4/11. You can add you can just double the power of Wolfsbane and just make that a completely crazy card. Either one of these are absolutely sick, and they're ways to go over the top of even the biggest decks in the meta. So this deck does a really phenomenal job of going wide by either playing like Brood and Absorbman or Sinister Absorbman, so on in multiple lanes, or it can go wide with Debris, but it can also go really tall because it's got like that the different broodlings or iron ladded brood type cards are so powerful, and then you're adding Wolfsbane and Surfer on top of that with the Wong, or just Wong Surfer Absorbing Man is going to win most games of Snap. There's so many ways to win with this deck. This deck is sick. I'm in love with this deck. Expect to hear more about this deck because I'm going to be playing the ever loving crap out of this deck. This is brilliant. This is why W gets video the instant he posts a deck. So make sure you try both of these decks out. I will, as usual, be back later today, very likely anyway, with a second Snap Take. We also have for you later today Snap Judgments podcast releasing on the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube and your favorite podcatcher. It's featuring both Eggs and Savage Yeti as we break down the patch, the OTA, and everything Marvel Snap for you. Thank you so much. We super appreciate you watching. I'll see you tomorrow for another, later or tomorrow for another Snap Take. Peace.